Now, to piece this together, in the morning, the whole morning we spoke about delivery. We heard about the tens of thousands of houses that are coming up by Rwanda Housing Authority. In the morning, the gentleman from Rwanda Social Security Board told us the thousands of houses that they are developing. But now, how are we going to buy these houses? We did hear about the Affordable Housing Fund that the government of Rwanda has put together. And the gentleman who is running that program is Emmanuel, to tell us how we are going to go through this and be able to buy these houses. Emmanuel, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Good afternoon, everyone. Those who are coming to Rwanda for the first time, you're welcome, and we are glad to be with you today, and we are already learning a lot. Yeah, so as already introduced, I'm Emmanuel, and I work for the Development Bank of Rwanda, and I do coordinate the Rwanda Housing Finance Project. So I'm privileged this afternoon to take you through how practically do we do that, and we'll be glad to have some feedback because the project is still live and we can improve with your inputs. So I don't know whether be the one running my slides. Okay. Good. So it's an overview. It's an overview of this project. Right. So I'll just share how the project started way back in 2018 when the government of Rwanda kept running. Okay. So a project at a glance, then the components we have in that project and the status, then some key challenges that already most of the speakers already touched on, and then conclusion and some current recommendations. So way back in 2018, the government of Rwanda approached the World Bank and approached the World Bank and then requested for 150 million credit facility to stimulate the end user finance. And the overall, or the project objective is to expand access to housing finance and support the capital market development, what we heard from our colleagues from the part of Africa. And the project was effective in 2019 and supposed to last for 5 years. So BRD is the one currently managing the fund on behalf of the government, but the fund the implementation is done through commercial banks. I have some of the partners already, CKCBs here. We work with the commercial banks through the lines of credit. And then the participating financial institutions, they extend the loans, the mortgages at an agreed interest rate to the end beneficiaries, and they can go for a tenure of up to 20 years. So just from the discussion of where from, what is the focus group or what is the target group again? So this one stays a challenge, and as you will see even later on at the end of the presentation. So when the program started, the government sat and they agreed, using the other pyramid, we are going to focus on people earning between 200 to 700 Rwandan francs. For those who are not familiar with the Rwandan franc, you can use dollars, 200 USD to 700 USD, the household income. So, and this one, when it translates into a mortgage for 20 years, it can only help to buy or acquire a unit that it is between 10 million to 35 million, which is again 10,000 to 35,000. Somebody, I think in the morning, I think it was Mustafa who said, in their country again, affordable housing unit is between 35 to 60. So For us, the 35, which is their beginning point, for us it is our ceiling. So that's how it's going to be really difficult. So, but currently, as you saw in the Director General's presentation in the morning, discussions are ongoing, and that bracket for ownership purposes, we think it should be revised to 1.2 million, which is about 1,200 USD, which is really the topmost part of the pyramid. So, component one of this project, which is the main component, and that was the real genesis of the project, is to provide long-term financing. It's really similar to the mortgage refinancing we had in the morning. So long-term financing, but we are currently just doing it in form of a project. And you know, a project has a lifetime, it has beginning and end, but typically the end result, or the major incentive, is to have the creation and the pressurization of the mortgage refinancing company that can later on take on this work when the project expires. And to do that, one is to have on board the commercial banks, the financial institutions. So as intermediate results for the project, our aim was again first to bring on board banks. Yes, we're also a bank, a commercial bank, but now that we are standing in the gap, so we've been mobilizing banks, and we already have 6 banks on board, which is really something appreciated again, as you heard from big brothers, the years they spent, but bringing banks on board also, it's not easy. So at least having them, not yet maybe injecting capital, but participating and extending this product, it's really something commendable. And then for the project specifically, we have a target of 6,000 mortgages. Only that. So it's a drop in an ocean. Looking at the demand that we saw and what is needed, but the target on this loan facility, if we achieve 6,000 mortgages, within 5 years, that will be my target, and I'll achieve my KPI. But it's not easy, I'll tell you. Next is component 2. Component 2 is about the technical assistance, as we heard even from the mortgage financing companies. These funds, normally, it's key that you have the technical assistance facility to support the entire ecosystem and make sure that everything you need is in order. So with that one we have at BRD for this project, it is well staffed, and the project is running, including the environmental and social safeguards, all that's required to run a facility from the World Bank. Then we are also again, we are targeting, we have to do institutional or capacity strengthening, institutional support. And the target is 8 institutions. We do provide different technical assistance to different institutions involved in the housing sector, including those participating financial institutions and the developers in general. We do workshops, we organize all those events, and again, actually go further to do some consultancies to support specific ministries and institutions where the need is. For instance, we've continued to champion or coordinate the entire review of the framework around affordable housing program, and we are tapping into these resources and do that as you heard it from even Rwanda Housing Authority. Again, people talked about demand. We are trying to have a housing demand registration database so that if developer you're coming, you really want to be sure, are these people there? And somebody actually mentioned, and somebody here in the room mentioned that, do we know what people want? So we build the system, and you catch all this information, and which type of houses, how many bedrooms, in which style, which locations that people prefer, and then developers can be directed to do such developments. Finally, we're also doing consultancies, and actually, from this presentation that we've just had, we've also launched a study on the market study and the low cost, where we intend to go practical and go. So we have Kigali as a bigger part of the urban area in Rwanda. But as I mentioned, we have satellite cities and we have secondary cities. So those are key urban areas. And we need to know exactly what demand is there and what type of typologies and how do you cost a unit that people would be able to afford. So we build on that and be practical on the supply side and the technologies that will be efficient and cost effective. So we expect to begin that study maybe beginning the year because we've already launched the tender, and we'll see the results before or in the middle of next year. Again, we are assisting some, we're doing, so when we talk this, we're talking about condominiums, and we are also facilitating the ministry in charge in trying to review and align the condominium law to these developments. Again, there is another needed part. Somebody mentioned about 3%, I think it was Charles, the 3% of the mortgages, the mortgage portfolio in Rwanda. So there is the need of the awareness campaign and on the mortgage uptake in Rwanda, and we are also tackling that one. Component number 3, which is the final one, is about the infrastructure subsidy program that you had in the morning, that the government is the current incentive that the government is providing, basically. So the government, again, requested the World Bank that you could be reallocation of the fund. So out of the 150 million, the 30, we are using it for the subsidy program. So basically, if the project is approved with the Rwanda Housing and the Ministry of Infrastructure, then in terms of receiving the cash or the subsidy, we are the ones who do the disbursement. So it is also within our mandate. And at least for this 30 million, we have a target of financing the infrastructure for at least 3,000 new units, and the money is still available. Again, this one, as I mentioned, we do work hand in hand with Rwanda Housing. We have even an MOU in place on who does what, and for us, our part basically is on the disbursement of the approved funds. Some projects have been approved, but others are yet to be approved, and those which are approved yet, they have not really fully utilized this resource. It is still available. So if you're here and interested again, this is reality, the money we have. So if I talk about the challenges, and I know that really people have really talked about them, but now on the real practical side of it, what we see every day, we still confirm and agree with the presenters who have already mentioned, specifically about the purchasing power. So as I told you, this facility originally it is intended for people earning between 200 to 700. But when you look at the products you have on the market, that income group cannot afford. They can't afford to buy, and all on ownership basis, the 35 million housing unit. It can only be maybe afforded by the extreme end, which is 700,000. And again, when you go deep into also their needs, they will still find, if you're bringing the modernized style, the 50 square meters, and maybe it's a household of 6 or 7, they'll still think the product does not meet their need. So there is really a lot on the demand side to be specific, and maybe it's on the next slide, but on the purchasing and the spending capacity, it's a very big challenge, specifically for the ownership tenure through mortgages. Then on the supply side, this has been really very much highlighted, the lack of developer finance. BRD, together with other commercial banks in the market, they do provide construction loans, but they're expensive. Even BRD as a development bank, they are still expensive because of the source of financing also. So by the time it reaches the market, it is really expensive for the developers to tap into, and they deliver affordable units. And then the mechanism, the incentives mechanism, it is still unattractive. And as we saw from Director General's presentation in Rwanda Housing in the morning, there are still a lot of discussions going on and consultations with the key players in the sector to see what could really work in terms of land provision, in terms of offtake guarantee, in terms of tax exemptions, and the criteria, the eligibility criteria to qualify for to be considered as affordable housing. And then the fact that has remained really is that the construction costs in Rwanda are really high, and this is the whole entire ecosystem, construction materials, all the source of finance. When we really consider all those other inputs to deliver a product, then we conclude that the construction cost is really high. So to conclude, and again add a voice on what the majority have already said. So for us, specifically on the project, to successfully implement this and achieve our targets, and again, the affordable housing program in general, there is really a clear need and call for government intervention, definitely in collaboration with different key stakeholders, to address some of the challenges. And the discussion that have been going, these have really prevailed to be some really possible interventions. One is that we become specific, and I think that was just a conclusion here, and some people asked the questions around it, is that we need different schemes for different income categories. The current one we are talking about, which is mortgage, it is for the few on the top of the pyramid. And that's why we even said, yes, there is a bigger hand that the government still needs to play for the low side of the pyramid. But if we can review the criteria and increase the income category to allow in more who can actually afford on the mortgage, rather than tying ourselves to the lower group, which will never in any way afford the mortgage within the current environment. So there, I think we saw from Director General's presentation in the morning that there are at least 3 categories. So that for mortgages, we're going to be considering from 1.2, up to 1.2 income category. Then for affordable rental, up to 700,000, and then for the social housing, up to 200, where the majority falls, as one of the speakers already, one of the participants asked the question. For the majority from the pyramid, we saw more than 50% they earn below 200 USD per month. Then on the supply side, there is no way that we are going to avoid establishing an affordable developer finance, because if we don't do that, then we'll never achieve delivery of affordable housing. And then the enhanced mechanism of the incentives to touch into the allowing the eligibility, for instance, to be flexible in reviewing the eligibility depending on what is on the market, and it keeps changing. And then touch into allow innovations. This affordable housing sector, maybe not only for Rwanda, but again, as we have here as Africa, it's a baby. It's a young baby, and it's a green field where we need to keep trying. So if this doesn't work, there should be a flexibility to change and try this, until we say we are there. But if we just stay rigid and we say our definition is this one, and we can't move, then we are missing a point. So that's the whole logic of what you are emphasizing as the flexibility. Thank you so much for kind attention.
and then this developer is caught in the middle. Is there any solution from your part on that? Thank you.
Well, I'm not too sure there is it's factual on the city of Kigali that if you subdivide, you lose your plot. I don't think that's factual. Yeah.
Yeah, you produce a master plan on a certain 5 hectares, and your permit is given on that master plan. Once you start subdividing them, that master plan has 1 title for 5 hectares. Once you start subdividing it into various titles, you lose the permit for those other titles. That's what it is.
I don't think that's really factual, but no. You want to comment on that, Enrico? I live in that life on my day-to-day basis, and that's not what happens. So what? Okay. I also know the work that he does. I'll be very surprised that he's aware about. But if you can answer that, maybe it will be helpful. But maybe for everybody's sake, you have 2 options when you apply for a building permit, and it depends on what you're going to build. If you're going to build a block of flats, if your subdivision of units are either vertically or horizontally, that's where the challenge is, because you cannot get subdivision of apartments until you have built them. And is that what you meant? Oh, that's what you meant. Okay. Yes. There is. I know there is a gap in the Surveyors Act that is in the offing that will allow you to be able to get a deed plan. A title of a deed plan, as long as the building permit is approved. But that's something that's work in progress. But yeah, thank you.
So I'm Winnie Getao, Kwangu Kwako Limited. I'm from Kenya. I work in the same sector between $200 to $700. We use precast concrete panels to build houses. Now, you actually said something like that income bracket, people do not want to build houses, or something to do with mortgage. My question is it because they're coming to the city so that they earn money? So in this particular regard, they will save whatever it is they can get so that they can actually go to the rural areas and build from there. If you actually provided them finance for rural housing, they would probably do it. Okay? It's not like to say the mortgage itself in the city is expensive. So if you actually provided the same thing and they go to build in the rural areas, can you provide that financing for them to do so, because it is actually going to be cheaper on the rural side?
I think, Emmanuel, as you're answering that, you need to emphasize that the end user is not through BRD, but through the respective financial institutions with whom you have MOUs. Any other? Maybe you can take those and then, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. One was about the diaspora people. So, first of all, who are the eligible beneficiaries of this facility? These are Rwandan citizens or permanent residents. So if you are a Rwandan citizen, and again, how do we appraise again? If we know, even on the local market, there is no system that can actually help us track the incomes of people. That's the reality. But if you're in the loan appraisal process, you are asked to bring your source of income. For instance, if you are a salary earner, then you bring a salary certificate from your employer. Or if you're earning an income, again, this is a income that can be tracked, you can be asked to present, for instance, a 6 months account history. And this one can show how your income comes in. So if you are in diaspora and you're Rwandan, and you want to acquire this facility, this again could be, you can use one of those. And I mean, all this thing, first of all, is built on trust. That if it's a company that gave you that recommendation that you work for, and they are able to certify that that's your income, then I don't think there is any problem. So the second question, and again, you're also wondering whether I would be the right person to answer it, but the part that I picked as Charles tried to intervene is on the condominium. And I already told you that there's a work we are doing with the Ministry of Environment and the Land Center about the issues with the current condominium law. And I've really gained some knowledge on what some of the shortfalls for the existing law that we had since 2010 that is currently going to be reviewed and updated after the new set of the revisions around the land policy, the land law, the National Land Use Master Plan. So all those ones now in place, they are new for focusing at Vision 2050. So the condominium law is also going to be updated and reviewed accordingly. So if it was really an issue regarding the vertical construction, the whole arrangement in the condominium, then those will be addressed through the ongoing review. So the second question that talks about what would be the real analysis. Again, as Charles requested, just to emphasize that. So as BRD, for us, we don't do retail banking. We work with commercial that extend these mortgages to the end beneficiaries. But, and we don't say that the facility is only for people in the city of Kigali or in the secondary cities. It is for all Rwandans, as long as where the house is constructed has followed and respected the provisions of such a allocation. Maybe for your information, for Rwanda, at least I know that rural settlement again is focusing on group settlements, and with that one, if those locations that are already known, if somebody is to acquire any property that is built in a rural setting and it has also, because there are also different levels of getting maybe construction permits in the level settlements, then we don't think that such a facility is not compliant. And actually, the reason of even we are saying, again, we might say that we are targeting up to 1.2, but if somebody is earning maybe 100,000 francs and they're able to allocate a property which is maybe 8 million or 7 million and they want to really own that, then we are saying let's remove the floors and even serve those segments as long as those properties are available. So coming to the city, high costs, yes, they will be high, and most might not access this facility unless we have different technology to intervene. But again, financing end users who are in the village or in the local areas, we are open to that. But looking at where we see the trends of urbanization maybe being caused by people moving from rural to urban, there are several factors, job, employment, they are following up. So it might be hard to have a policy now to say people go back and then let's finance you in the villages. But rather there are other pull factors that may cause them to actually find that they need the houses and in the cities, not in the villages. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. A round of applause for him. Thank you.